is always that we mistake the idea of love for attachment. You know, we imagine that the grasping and clinging that we have for in our relationships shows that we love, whereas actually it is just attachment which causes pain, you know, because the more we grasp, the more we are afraid to lose. Then if we do lose, then of course we are going to suffer. I mean, genuine love is, well, attachment says, you know, I love you, therefore I want you to make me happy. And genuine love says, I love you, therefore I want you to be happy. If that includes me, great. If it doesn't include me, I just want your happiness. And so it's a very different feeling. You know, attachment is like holding very tight, but genuine love is like holding very gently, nurturing, but allowing things to flow, not to be held tightly. The more tight we hold on to others, the more we will suffer. But it's very hard for people to understand that, because they think that the more they hold on to someone, the more it shows that they care about them. But it's not. It's really just that they're trying to grasp at something because they're afraid that otherwise they themselves will be hurt. Any kind of relationship which imagines that we can fulfill ourselves through another is bound to be very tricky. I mean, ideally, people should come together already feeling fulfilled within themselves and just therefore appreciating that in the other, rather than expecting the other to supply that sense of well-being which they don't feel on their own. Then there's a lot of problems. And also along with the projection, which comes with romance, where we project all our ideals and desires and romantic fantasies onto the other, which the other cannot possibly fulfill. Once you get to know them, you recognize that it's not Prince Charming or Cinderella. It's just, you know, a very ordinary person also struggling. And unless one is able to see them to like them, as well as feel a desire for them, and to also have loving kindness and compassion, then it's going to be a very difficult relationship.
I find it very difficult not to see a problem in Tenzin Palmo way of reasoning Buddhism, even when I would agree with her regarding the drawbacks of extreme attachment. She undoubtedly does a complicated semantic operation in her way of saying things. She refers to attachment as a sign of imbalance and something unhealthy, but she does not call it extreme attachment, but simply attachment. However, when she refers to its opposite, detachment, she refers to it as something balanced and healthy without referring to extreme detachment at all. Thus, attachment, from her point of view, is always extreme attachment, since all forms of attachment are unhealthy, while detachment is always healthier, since detachment, from her point of view, does not refer by default to extreme detachment. Tenzin Palmo is biased and makes a straw man out of attachment while picking and applying arbitrary favoritism to detachment. One should not even be attached to detachment. However, while thinking about Tenzin Palmo's ideas, I let my view and hers exist with certain level of parallelism without bias. These are the findings of my analysis of detachment. I personally do not understand attachment only as being attached, but also as being attached to detachment, or in other words, as an inability not to keep distance even from your own detachment. To me personally, most monks preach detachment in the same attached way that attached people are narcotized by attachment. When one tries to explain detachment by saying that detachment is not extreme detachment, one can neglect that the same can be done with attachment. In other words, attachment is not necessarily extreme attachment. Hence, if we would believe in a mild version of detachment, love a flower, don't pick it, there is no reason not to believe in a mild version of attachment. Pick the flower and move it to a better ground. Don't leave it to die. If we associate the word attachment with possession, giving it a negative meaning, we can likewise associate the word detachment with indifference and give it a negative meaning as well. We could also say that the forces of attachment and detachment can create a balance. However, she favors detachment because monks live a detached life that is often extreme. Let's, as a pertinent question, is it good or bad to be attached, or is it good or bad to be detached? When we associate generic words to more specific words that we clearly recognize as good or bad, for instance, love or attachment, then those specific words will mistakenly make the generic words good or bad accordingly without being so per se. Do you know how many people, even great philosophers, continue to give bad or good reputations to generic words as if they were so per se? And this is not just confined to the moral sphere, but to any sphere that contains elements in opposition. No generic word can form universal statements that are not limited and specific to certain situations. Let us give some examples with two concrete opposite words. We could associate the word attachment with many bad things such as dependence, clinging, worshiping, controlling, pleasing, etc. Thus, we have successfully constructed a terrible profile for attachment. We could also associate the word detachment with many good things such as peace, love, letting go, being free, independent, etc. Therefore, we would successfully build a great profile for detachment. Each word has a spectrum of variations that allow us to make each word great or terrible in a general sense. However, when we universalize generic words, if we opt for one and discard another, there is no single fundamental generic word that can play the role of the basic principle for all other words. Each generic word can be contracted and stretched to play exactly the same universal philosophical role as any other generic word. So why do philosophers and thinkers today continue to play this childish game of universalism by making a fundamental principle the pivot of all their narratives? Because our mind and our memory take time, sometimes even a long time, to realize this ontological mismatch of reality and meaning. By the time we reach wisdom, if ever, it is usually too late to unlearn our mind of this transcendental error. Let us not forget, everything that exists by existing generates and has side effects. It is precisely these side effects that allow something to always be recoded as the opposite, or at least in the vicinity of the opposite. We make again and again in vain metaphysics of this mishap and pretend to be a poetic or philosophical genius, taking advantage of the bad historical and logical memory of other humans.